and welcome. This is the first in a behind the scenes series where we're opening up how the Consumer Impact Summit actually comes together and inviting you into the process. This isn't a highlight reel, it's the real planning, real decisions, and real trade-offs. For anyone new here, Brian and Jeff, if you'll take a moment to introduce yourselves and share what your role is in bringing the summit to life.
Well, I'm Brian Welch, and I'm the managing partner for the summit, which means my role is trying to make sure it happens and that it's as good as possible.
Great.
And I'm Jeff Clapper. I'm the CEO at Eighth and Walton, and we are a founding sponsor and partner of the event. And so we have a lot of heart for making this event happen and happen successfully and meaningfully for everybody.
Yeah. And I'm Annie Reinke, marketing manager at Eighth and Walton, and on the ground worker for Consumer Impact Summit. Brian, what is one thing you're most excited to build differently this year?
And I think the thing that's most exciting to me right now is we're adding a bunch of content that's very practical, very boots on the ground kind of content about how purpose-driven CPG companies interact and scale in retail, in big retail chains. It's become super technical. And so a lot of content about data analysis and a lot of content about retail systems and how one operates within those systems. We're adding actually a sort of sidecar track that addresses a whole bunch of these issues at the ground level and delivers some of the stuff that any CPG company needs to know in order to succeed. And we're offering that because we want these purpose-driven CPG companies to be successful.
Yeah, it's exciting seeing it come together this year. Jeff, what do you care most about with this event for 2026?
Mm, I really, I just want to build on the success of our first event, of the 2025 event. We are already way ahead of, as you would expect, way ahead of where we were um, a year ago when we were putting together the first event, and that one that went so well. I'm just excited to see the second year take shape, knowing all that we already know, building on the relationships, building on the successes. Um, I think a little bit more specifically, and somewhat back to Brian's answer, also, starting to understand even more what the attendees want, what this community wants and needs, and making sure that we continue to refine and improve on based on that understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching this right now, you're not just an attendee, you're part of the build. You're encouraged to comment in your thoughts and share your experiences so that we can create the best event for you and your peers. And Jeff, where do we want to give the community a voice in shaping the summit?
Yeah, I mean, I love that question. I think it's conversations like this one. It's these visits, people just, commenting, sending in thoughts and notes. Brian and I are having conversations every week with potential attendees and speakers and other partners. And I mean, I literally just a couple hours ago had a call with someone from a logistics company. I said, what other topics would you like to see addressed? They were a key partner in the first event. It was RJW. Um, Pardon me, and just to say, what other topics do you want to make sure we're addressing? It's those conversations happening all the time, to make it even better, and then yeah, I mean, just to keep building on it.
Yeah. Brian, what are you hoping people feel by being included in this process?
Oh gosh, at their best, events always include, they're always big collaborative things, so that the process of developing an event, if it's going to be any good, is a super collaborative process. So as Jeff says, we're talking to dozens of people. I'm talking to dozens of people a week about the event and what they would look for. We're in close touch with the sponsors and many of the attendees from last year and have really good feedback, most of it really positive, but really good feedback that should help us, create an even better event in 2026. Oh, and people should know, I'm just Brian at consumerimpactsummit.com, and I'm wide open to people who want to talk, people who want to sponsor, or people who just want to share some thoughts about what, the kind of event they'd like to attend.
Yeah. Well, I know you both have taken a lot of time talking with last year's attendees, so let's rewind for a second. What stood out to both of you about last year's summit? Let's start with Jeff.
Sure, sure. Hopefully, I don't steal Brian's own thoughts or answers, but
I'll just interrupt you if you do and make sure you don't finish.
perfect. Perfect. Um, two immediate thoughts, Annie. The first was that there was just so much good like practical learning and understanding. It was the qualifier for everyone involved in the first event and all of these, I hope, was that these are businesses and people and leaders who are already bought into the idea of business as a force for good. And so we didn't have to really spend a whole lot of energy saying, wouldn't it be great if we cared about business and cared, really, here's why business as a force for good is a good thing. We didn't have to spend a lot of energy on that. That was a qualifier or, sort of a self-selection to everyone in the room. And so as a result, I think there were two things that were great about the event. Uh, the first is that we could get into really practical solutions and problem solving and meaningful learning. That could be the focus of the conversation. And then the second was just the overall dynamic and energy of the event, the vibe, if you will, was just really it was just a good, constructive, positive energy. And, I know we all had conversations where people said this did not feel like a first time event. This did not feel like any kind of traditional or typical conference or learning session or seminar that you would attend. It was just like really good energy, people eager to be there, eager to support, eager to learn. And so that was something else that really stood out to me. Brian?
Yeah, I'm building on what you said, without the necessity of interrupting you, Jeff. We tried to provide a lot of space for networking. For all of us, one of the most important things about going to a conference is the people we meet, the new relationships we form with people who can help us make our businesses more successful. And I think that paid off in the first event. And we're going to double down on that in the next event. I think Peggy Shell from Creative Alignments, that's a Colorado B Corporation, and Peggy's company specializes in a very interesting kind of personnel role where they help people hire individuals who create the culture that the business needs, that the client wants. And Peggy gave a tremendous talk last year, and is really acutely skilled at building enthusiasm, building relationships, getting people involved in what's happening in the context of an event. And so she's going to play a more major role in next year's event in some community building exercises and fun processes that'll run throughout the event. And I'm quite excited about that.
That's personally exciting to hear. Peggy's talk was one of my very favorites, and I've taken some of the thought-provoking questions she prompted us with into, Q1 of next year, even with the things she got me thinking about. So it's great to hear. I agree. The community was really special, and I'm excited to see how it builds for 2026. Brian, what surprised you the most about how people showed up?
That's a great question. Um, I was surprised and gratified by the fact, where the conference is located in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is in a part of the world that doesn't have a lot of B corporations, doesn't have any kind of cohesive, purpose-driven business community that people have plugged into. And one of the wonderful benefits of being in Bentonville, besides its proximity to a very large retailer, is it's a very purpose-driven business community without any defined cohesive business community, purpose-driven business organization. And so as a result, a really high percentage of the people there were passionately engaging in their first purpose-driven business event. And their enthusiasm, that fresh enthusiasm and the kind of feeling that people have when they first encounter something that's inspiring to them, was a surprise to me and was super gratifying. It was a really cool part of what was going on, I think.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting to hear you define that as someone who lives in Bentonville. Hearing the way you talk about it, I think is so perfect. Jeff,
Yeah, I would just quickly. I love what everything Brian said, and I would just quickly add from my own experience attending events. There are obviously just tons and tons of business events and opportunities for for people to plug into. And some of the summits or conferences that I have attended that have been most memorable and most meaningful were ones where I felt like, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks about developing a business in this way. And I think that, that was a big sense of what we had with our event, to Brian's point. We had a lot of people, especially from the, from the business community here and elsewhere, but really kind of getting that sense of belonging and like we're not alone in the effort to use business, to have a positive impact. I found some people that this also resonates with, and it's just, there's a compounding energy that you get from that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's share where things are at right now. So still evolving. What's the working theme for this year and why does it matter right now for Jeff?
This is
Do we have a word? Do we have a theme?
I don't know.
I was watching Brian's face on this one.
Nobody told me we had a theme.
I would say the theme is, how do we use this is a very general theme, and it's probably the same as it was last year. Brian and I've had a lot of conversations about putting a theme to an event before we really have our heads around what's going to happen at the event. So we are pretty intentional about not having a specific answer to that question, I guess I would say, other than to say, we want to bring together leaders who are bought into, consumer product and retail leaders who and all connected industries who are interested in using their business to create a positive impact. That's a theme, of course. That's fairly high level. And then a step past that, if that's, again, like I said earlier, if that's kind of the qualifier for attending, then the theme is, well, now how are we doing that? Let's learn from each other in real experiences and share real learnings and real experiences, things that went well, things that didn't go well. So the theme is like learning from each other's experience in the effort to have a positive impact in the CPG and retail space. How's that?
I think that counts as a theme. Maybe wear fun socks.
Yeah.
We may have a color theme. I'm thinking
Okay.
about that. I love weddings for that, and I thought that's something we might bring.
That'll be in the goodie bag. Some
We're gonna-
some fun headbands or something.
Matching headbands. I love that.
Well, so we're really working obviously on bringing everyone together, building community, building purpose-driven people together. What kinds of conversations or even tensions are we intentionally leaning into as we build next year's programming?
I think one of the more interesting and difficult issues is how we represent purpose-driven businesses as not part of a political faction.
Mm,
Because in a divided country where none of us can afford to exclude half of the potential customers, we have a very interesting challenge in making sure that our product is that our purpose is recognized as beneficial to all people and to the planet, and that's our reason for doing it. I mean, the purpose-driven business community has always been quite diverse, actually, and from the earliest days, and I was there. Um, From the earliest days, a high percentage of people involved in purpose-driven businesses were faith. Their inspiration was faith-based. They were devoutly religious in one way or another, and were bringing those spiritual values to business. They felt it was important that their business reflect those values. They weren't all Christians. There were Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists, but that was a part of how they wanted their business to serve those values. And so we shouldn't be categorized as being a project of one political perspective or another, because we're not. But there's always tension there, because from the outside, people identify an organic food product as somehow being, coming out of a particular political perspective. Well, that's just not the case. And so we have a lot of interesting challenges in front of us, and it is one of the stickier areas of discussion. We have a lot of interesting challenges in front of us along those lines, and those will be challenges forever, but right now they're particularly challenging.
Yes, absolutely. Jeff, do you have anything to add there?
Lots of great thoughts from Brian, of course. And I think there are also sort of perennial challenges and tensions in this industry around being purpose driven. If you improve your let's say you make healthy food more accessible to people who don't necessarily have access to it, but maybe you do that at the cost of uh, maybe sourcing from farther away. And so now that you're sourcing from farther away, you're emitting more carbon. Your supply chain has grown. So there's just countless examples of those kinds of tensions. And it's fascinating and challenging to always be thinking through those. We reduced our packaging so that we had less waste, but as a result, there's less structural integrity, and so now more stuff gets damaged and thrown away. Now we have more waste on the other side. So just again, countless examples of those tensions that we get to wrestle with in these conversations.
Great
Yeah.
puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what you just said, Jeff, reminded me of something that I took away, which is the idea of this large group of people who are intending to do good imperfectly. So we can't be perfect in this realm, and so how can we do the best we can? And I think you just really articulated that tension well.
Mhm.
Um, what gaps do we know still exist in the lineup? So I know we're still building out speakers and sponsors for next year, but we do have some confirmed speakers. What gaps do we have? Who are we excited about? Can you talk, Brian, about the speakers we know about and the speakers maybe we would like to see, or kinds of speakers we'd like to see?
I'll just say it's all a gap now. So if you think you person out there in the world have something interesting to say, you should reach out now. I mean, we have about a dozen speakers confirmed, and I'm excited about all of them. Um, when one is a speaker at a conference and one watches a show on the internet where the organizers are saying, "I'm particularly excited to hear Jeff speak," but they don't mention Brian, it hurts my feelings. And so I'm going to say I'm excited about all of them, and I am. Um, and any programming ideas folks have, we have space for those ideas. One of the other changes in the event this year is last year we started at the end of the day, on day one, and finished midway through day three. This year we're going to go all the way through the end of day three. We found we had so much great programming that we wanted to create space for it. And so this year we'll have, about 25% more time. And last year we had 55 speakers. I wouldn't be surprised if we might have 70 this year. And so, like I say, it's mostly gap at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
I'm gonna
excited to see more speakers.
I'm going to
Go
insert
ahead, Brian.
to be edited later here and ask Alex if we aren't well past time.
I'm seeing a chat.
He has an idea for a question.
Oh, yes.
We're
Who
doing
is
fine.
your
I would say keep going. You're totally fine.
okay?
Fine.
And yeah, the question here, so the one that I would love to like a follow up to this, Annie, is
Great.
Now we're kind of talking about it's like, hey, when I say moonshot, dream speaker, like Brian, Jeff, like if you could have anyone from, from this industry of thinking come and speak, who would it be? Like, hey, and we could do a cool little call out in like the social as well. Like,
Tag them in the comments.
yeah, be like, how do we get you to this event, sort of thing.
Got
Mhm.
it. Okay. I'll do
Do
a
you
little
want
wait.
to? Yeah, yeah. Some kind of like when you see me in the video going like this is a spot where you need to.
The robot. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something before we go back in, Jeff?
Are you just going to re-ask your question of Brian?
She
No, I'm gonna
doesn't.
ask who we're
She's
shooting
going
for
to
the
ask the
moon
new
for.
question, Alex's new question.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any dream shooting for the moon speaker ideas that either of you have? And if so, tag them in the comments.
Brian, you want to take this one? I have my answer.
You then go ahead because I don't have my answer yet. I'm paging through a number. You go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I know I have many. One that was just fresh on my mind from a conversation this week. In the last week or two, I saw Ben and Jerry's on the Colbert late night show talking about this really cool thing where he's got his own ice cream flavor of Ben and Jerry's, and rather than taking that money himself, he basically said. All of this goes into a fund that is donated to various nonprofits, and those are determined by the staff of the show, the writers and producers, and everyone else who actually makes this name something. And I just thought that was really neat, and I'd love to hear more about it. And so I would love to have, either the Ben and Jerry's founders or and along with Stephen Colbert, that would just be incredible to have a conversation about how they're doing, what they're doing, what comes next, all of that cool stuff.
And my dream is to have the CEO of any of the five biggest retailers in the country at our event. The critical question for purpose-driven business is how do we scale? How do we get recognized as purpose-driven by consumers? How do we drive consumer behavior toward purpose-driven businesses? How do we encourage individuals to make their buying decisions based on the impacts of the companies they're doing business with? And the chief gatekeepers responsible for all of that are the big retailers.
Mhm.
And so I would love to have, you know, C-suite executives from any and all of those retailers in the room, both to hear their perspective on what purpose means in the retail setting, but also give them a chance to see our community together and absorb the enthusiasm, the value systems, the reason, the motivations that drive the purpose-driven business community. That's so that'd be my dream.
Love it. So
None
moving
of those
to
guys are connected to me in LinkedIn, by the way. Not a single one.
keep sending messages, Brian.
Okay, I will. I am.
And I would love to see leaders from B Corp and 1% for the planet. We are actually working on getting certified as a B Corp this year. That's a goal for Consumer Impact Summit. And working on our 1% for the planet membership. We loved working with them this last year. They were great sponsors, and we are looking forward to more speakers from those teams at 2026.
Yeah, we should say we had top people from 1% and from B Lab at last year's event, and they've been great supporters.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, other than what fun socks people should wear to this event and what the dress code will be, what is something we are actively debating as a team, and Brian and Jeff, that you're trying to figure out right now? What is something you're working through at the moment?
Well, Jeff is trying to get me to be a more fastidious planner. That is, I mean, you were talking about debating. That's something we are debating, but that's irrelevant. That's too much behind the scenes, isn't it? Even though this is behind the scenes. Um, It's the usual stuff. It's like one of the things that's a constant conversation when you're pulling an event together is how do you balance the various topics? And because there's lots of people who want to talk, and there's lots of people you want to talk, but once you make a commitment to somebody to talk, then their subject matter has sort of then been uh, established in the context of the event. And so you kind of juggle as you're going along to make sure that you're pulling the right diversity together, both in terms of who the people are and what they're talking about. And I think, if you want to talk about ongoing discussions and debates as an event evolves between the people organizing it, I'd say that characterizes a lot of what we do. And
I
also
think
how
that
Brian could be a better and more organized leader.
no, I actually think no. I mean, Brian programmed an amazing event this first time around, and I know we'll do so again. And some of you kind of got a glimpse into some of his process just now. And then even some of his sort of joking there, it fits around a healthy tension between the two of us in where we're going with the event, through different lenses. I'm inclined to say like there's a lane or a bucket. I love spreadsheets, things in boxes, that kind of thing. And Brian's like, this is, there's just some grand vision to how it comes together, and it will. And that applies to topics and speakers. It applies to attendees. It applies to the numbers of of this as a business. All of that. So there's a healthy tension in sort of just moving forward with a certain, I don't know, belief that it will work, and a kind of quiet vision around it. And then there's also on the other side of that tension, or of the tug of war, is like, let's try to put things in their boxes and put things in their place. And I think the end result is something really awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
I totally understand, and I believe very deeply in the value. And we're a good team. I mean, Jeff and I balance out super well. But he never goes to the whiteboard because for some reason I have like a medical condition. As soon as someone writes a single line on a whiteboard, I immediately go into a catatonic state. I'm unconscious that instant.
Fortunately, I can read his body language. It's
I
it's also unfortunate because I love a whiteboard. So we
No.
both had to make adjustments.
Yeah.
I'm learning something new, and I feel like I know you both pretty well. I know how much Jeff loves a whiteboard. Brian, I didn't know how little you love a whiteboard.
I mean,
It's
it's
like
a medical condition. I'm not expressing an opinion. I'm
No,
just
it's just
saying that I
mhm.
go directly to sleep as soon as somebody starts writing on one.
I love a
Good
whiteboard
to
as
know.
much as Brian hates a whiteboard.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I
This
know.
is the tension we're navigating right now.
Yeah.
That's probably the most, it seems like maybe the
Yes.
most tension in the Consumer Impact Summit meetings is
Yeah.
Jeff's
Yeah.
inclination toward a whiteboard.
Mm.
That's right.
Uh, what is something we're intentionally not doing this year and why?
I'm we had a we had an awesome I don't know if this is actually the answer you were looking for, but we had an awesome sunrise yoga on the rooftop of the Ledger, and I was one of the attendees. I don't know if we'll continue it because I was one of two attendees. Um, it was really cool. Maybe if we get a different read from the audience this year, it was a really neat experience. And I developed a friendship with the person who was the other attendee. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a small specific answer, but I was
Well,
just
and the
laughing to
reason
myself.
the attendance was so poor is because it was competing with my guided meditation. So
Yes,
I
Very
did a
yes,
guided
popular.
meditation at the same time as the yoga, and it was packed. What can I say?
it's
It was
true.
very busy. It was very busy and very calm. We'll definitely do that again next year. So this is just the beginning. And what parts, just for the viewers, what parts of the planning process should we show next? Please comment your
Oh,
thoughts on any of this. Please go ahead, Brian.
yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry to interrupt, Annie. One thing I definitely wanted to mention was we got the floor plan not quite right last year, and the exhibitors, the people who had paid to have exhibits, were sort of out of the way. And we're going to make sure
Mm.
that doesn't happen again. The exhibitors, the people with booths, are going to be in the center of the action. I did want to say that. Apologies for
That's
interrupting.
good.
No, it's a great ad. Thank you, Brian. One of the questions I was going to ask viewers is, do you have any venue changes, suggestions, speakers you'd want to see that you can tag in the comments, sponsors you'd want to see? We're really open to your input at this point in the process. And before we wrap, here's how you can be part of this. Drop your ideas in the chat or the form. Nominate a speaker or topic you think belongs here. Share this with someone or share on your LinkedIn, your Instagram, share this on your page. We're building this with you and we're excited to see you in the next behind the scenes session. Any ads, Jeff and Brian?
Thank you,
This was
Annie.
fun.
And thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah.
Write me.
Looking forward to
I'm
talking.
lonely.
Yeah.